Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very warm welcome to each one of you for another edition of our evening talk, which has become very popular. And as usual, during the lockdown for the last few days, we have been doing some number of events. We have been bringing it to you, mainly starting in the morning with a quiz. It's a real brain twister. In fact, if the quiz link get delayed by about few minutes, I get a lot of SMSs. Where is the quiz link? That clearly shows that the people are really got hooked onto that. And we use this model where everybody will do it on their own. Nobody knows what exactly how is performance. When the performance is not measured, everybody is performing very well. I think that we really realize during this program, which reaches almost 1,000 plus people every day, starting with articles and some lovely events, workshops, certificate courses. Thanks so much. You have been a real source of support. We are able to bring you consistently with good programs, and I think people are still logging in there in the waiting room. I'll take one more minute to quickly share with you what's happening in the month of June, though our programs have been finalized till September. In the month of June, on the 11th of June, again this month, 11th of June, the Friday, we have an event on unleashing creativity and innovation, next gen leaders. Without innovation, one thing is not happening. The next gen leaders, and we got a child prodigy. I don't know, incidentally, he's also from Pune. I don't know that you know him. Aditya Panchapade from CEO of Next Gen Innovation from Pune, and his father Sandeep. And we also got the CEO of Tech Mahindra. We got some outstanding panel. We'll be discussing how to really encourage next gen leaders. This boy is at the age of 13, is innovator running his own company. I thought it's really worthwhile to get inspired listening to him. Then on Wednesday 16th, we have again a nice event on our own journey by Babita Barua, from managing director partner of GTP India. And she is a great person who has worked in a number of corporate organizations. Then on 23rd, we have a business strategy for MS SMEs. We have Krish ex Deloitte is going to be talking to us, because SME is one thing they are going through a tough time. We thought we must do something for them exclusively, how they can really relook at the business strategy and how they should come out of things. And it's happening on 23rd, and again on 29th, we have outstanding event. We have V. Narayanan Memorial Endowment Lecture. We have outstanding panelists who are going to be talking to us that day, starting with Mr. N. Shankar, chairman of the Sanmar Group, and Arish Manwani. You all know Arish Manwani is the former CEO of Unilever, and actually we'll walk miles to him, one of the great thought leaders, and who was heading earlier, the director of Whirlpool, and number of other organizations. This is what is happening. Besides that, the number of events also finalized. I think we're also getting Manish Tiwari, CEO of Amazon Consumer Thing, and we are getting on International Tourism Day on 15th. We are bringing in even how to look at domestic tourism as a serious issue for entrepreneurs, because the travel restrictions, people are so scared about going. It's the best way to promote your domestic tourism, because so many places in our own Tamil Nadu, I'm quite sure many of us would not have visited. It is true with many of the Indian states. We thought, why can't we do that? Now, coming to today's event, this is again a subject very, very well discussed, and most of the time it's been talked about in every forum, every organization. Accelerating digital success, reimagining organizations for a post-COVID-19 world. And we've got outstanding three authors who put together their thoughts on the theme of the book, which we are going to be discussing. Let me have the proud privilege of formally welcoming Ravi Purushottam, President of MMA, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, Chairman, Uma Ganesh, co-founder and chairperson, and I'll be introducing them a little later, and Lavanya Jayaram. To start with the program, as usual, we request you to kindly share all your questions to chat box. The speaker and the other co-panelists will be responding to all your questions. And if you have other viewers who are watching the program on our various social media, please type your questions and we collate them all and put together to the distinguished panelists. And I request you to kindly focus on the question what is relevant to the theme being discussed this evening. And to start with, the format is after Mr. Ravi gives a formal welcome introduction. We have a brief introduction of all the three speakers and also a formal launch of the book. Thereafter, we will have a discussion. Now, let me have the privilege of welcoming Mr. Ravi and also introduce Ravi Chandran Purushottam. Ravi is it doesn't need introduction for our thing, because he is also the president of Madras Management Association. He is currently the president of Danfoss Industries Limited, and is actively engaged in startup ecosystems, industry, university engagement, many more, and alumni of Engineering College IIM Gindi and IIMA, and he's been a great source of support to MMA. The transformation, what digital happening in MMA, I think Ravi is one of the person responsible of pushing us to bring out the best in the team what I have in MMA. Thank you, Ravi, for all your support. Now I request Ravi to give a formal welcome introduction. Over to you, Mr. Ravi.
Yeah, thank you, Group Captain, and Good evening, everybody. It's indeed my privilege to deliver the formal welcome address at this very special panel discussion on the theme Accelerating Digital Success, Reimagining Organizations for a Post-COVID-19 World. It's indeed an honor for me to also welcome three very distinguished authors, especially in the area of digital. Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, Chairman, 5F World, Honeywell Automation India Lighthouse Communities. Dr. Uma Ganesh, co-founder and chairperson of Global Talent Track. And Ms Lavanya, Jayaram Executive Director from South Asia Venture Philanthropy Network. Firstly, let me welcome all the invitees for this session. From the various organizations who have joined us this evening, guests and members from MMA all over Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, and large number of participants on the different digital platforms that we have been privileged to kind of participate most of our events all over the country and even outside. For the benefit of the guests on the platform today, it gives me immense pleasure to mention that MMA is the largest management association with over 8,000 members, and hopefully we will touch the 10,000 mark very soon, which has been also consistently being awarded as the best management association. For the 11th time in the row, we got that award this year. Today's discussion is, of course, a very, very interesting theme, very relevant theme, I think, and it's much deliberated across the world. We have seen how companies, Fortune 500 companies going belly up because they haven't really been very agile. And of course, business transformation is not an easy topic as well. But given the fact that we are talking about digital business transformation, I think that's a very, very relevant topic. I also consider it very appropriate to kind of give the MMA story here, where I think two important points I want to share. How companies can reinvent themselves with digital. If you take MMA as an example, when we all went into lockdown, something like 24th of March last year, I have to tell you that the secretariat of MMA, nobody is, below 30 years, like what Jack Ma talks about, focusing on people below 30. We have everybody above 30 years, in fact. So the secretariat actually has learned digital. So I think one of the biggest transformation we have seen is digital inclusiveness in MMA, which is very, very phenomenal that we have achieved. Second, I think what Group Captain and his team have delivered for MMA has been what I call as the perpetual agility that he has brought to the whole transformation, because MMA has been very fortunate that despite the location where we are, we could actually pivot the challenges that we saw as a great opportunity. Post, I think, 24th of March, within about 2 to 3 weeks, we went live. I think end of April, we went live. MMA was truly digital in a very short span of time. We continue to do, panel discussions, seminars like this, courses, online workshops. There's so many things that are happening, probably more than 1 or 2 events a day. And in fact, the reach of the audience today is much beyond India. And at the same time, the panelists who come and speak on the MMA platform are not anymore within India, they're even outside India. So you can clearly understand what kind of customer value are we creating when we go digital. And this is what I mean by the perpetual agility, that Group Captain and his team really saw what matters most for our customers. When I say customers, the members of MMA. And I think truly we are today MMA digital. I wouldn't call it as MMA, but MMA digital. It's an online and hybrid programs. And I think as a president, I have never been face-to-face on many meetings. There have been 1 or 2 meetings, we've been on a hybrid mode. But it is also a new experience for me to manage something on a very digital mode. So these are big transformations. I really want to compliment the MMA team for this tremendous progress we have made in the last 14 months. Of course, I'm sure after listening to the experts this evening, all the members and the guests who have embarked on the journey of digital transformation, I'm sure you will see the benefits and also gain significant insights on how, as companies, as enterprises, we can actually take the power of digital and really reinvent and become relevant for our customers. I would like to thank Konrad Adner Stiftung, who are our partners, and they continue to support us for all the MMA activities over the years. And I also like to take this opportunity to welcome all the past presidents of MMA, my colleagues from the management committee, members of MMA, distinguished invitees, management students who are participating on this evening, viewers across the globe who are watching the program live on YouTube, Facebook, and MMA Live webinar. I wish you all a very, very exciting evening, and I would hand it back to Group Captain. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi, for the formal welcome address and setting the context. And the MMA is done well because the team is as good as the leader. You are the person responsible for us to bring the best in us. Thank you so much. And now coming to today's evening, the important, the most awaited thing, and that is the launch of the book Accelerating Digital Success. And thereafter, I'll introduce the distinguished co-authors and author of this event, so that thereafter they will discuss, and the outcome is going to be very, very interesting and insightful to each one of them. We have the slide for Accelerating Digital Discuss more on the screen, the book, so that we'll officially launch it, and so that everybody could have a look at the book and they can buy and read and enhance your thing. It's an e-launch of the book, what we want to do that, and Accelerating Digital Success, Reimaging Organization for post-COVID-19 world. I think it will be a very, very useful book to have, and it will really give you a lot of insights on how to move forward. Now, there are not one, two, there are three authors who are pen this book, so you can understand a lot of research must have gone behind writing this book. And let me have the privilege of introducing the distinguished authors of the book, starting with Mr. Ganesh Natarajan. Mr. Ganesh Natarajan, Chairman, as mentioned, 5F World Honeywell, Automobile Indian Lighthouse Communities, and Ganesh is a co-founder and chairman, as I mentioned, for the organization. He's a digital transformation consultancy advisory services. He's also the co-founder of Lighthouse Communities Foundation, board member of State Bank of India, Induja Global Solutions, Social Venture Partners, a number of organizations. And so his insight will be really, really valuable to us, being part of the so many great organizations in India today. Very warm welcome to Mr. Ganesh, and many congratulations on writing the book, which is going to be discussed this evening. The next co-author of the book is Dr. Uma Ganesh. Is a co-founder, chairperson of Global Talent Tracks, and Uma is also provides live training and digital platform for skills development in Asia. She is also on the board member of Emoha Elder Care, Skill Alpha, and the Center for AI and Artificial Intelligence. And thank you, madam. And once again, all the best and congratulations for you to bring out another great book, which you are indeed privileged to discuss this evening. The third author of this book is Ms. Lavanya Jayaram. Lavanya Jayaram is Executive Director of South Asia Asian Venture Philanthropy Network, and Lavanya is a marketing and strategy professional and was previously a chief marketing officer of Zenzer Technologies. Now you know, gentlemen, we've got a very, very high profile co-authors who are going to turn the book and put together some insights, which I'm quite sure very, very, very useful to each one of us. And thank you, Mr. Ganesh, for choosing to MMA platform to come and discuss on the very theme of your book and giving priority over all other organizations to come and do it in MMA first. We are indeed privileged and obliged and honored. Over to you, Mr. Ganesh Natarajan. We are all looking forward to a great, insightful evening.
Thank you very much, Group Captain, and thank you, Ravi, for that very generous introduction and your keynote. Let me just start by what we will do in this session, so that we are all clear. So Uma, can you just go on mute, please? Yeah, thanks. So I think the purpose of today is, and I must say that, look, whenever I've done something innovative in my life, it's almost like going to Tirupati. So I come and present it in Madras Management Association, because I remember when I was running AppTech, there was something interesting that we were doing in e-learning, which I actually came to MMA physically, of course, and talked about. That was in the 90s. And then I think in 2010 or 11, I had the fortune of also again presenting in MMA when I was running Zensar Technologies. And then more recently, I think it was last month, Group Captain invited us to talk about our whole research on strategic patience with China, which was a really exciting session. And I must tell you, Group Captain, that we have done about 7 of those sessions, but we all fondly remember MMA because of the quality of interactions that we had. And interestingly, that's going to be my next book, which will be probably will come out from Rupa Publications in September. So privileged for us to discuss this book. And the way we'll do it is, as I said, I will take you through some slides because the idea is it's a context-heavy idea. So I thought we will use some PowerPoint, which I normally don't do. And I will introduce the whole overall agenda to you and what we researched and what is really culminated in this book. Then request my colleague Lavanya to talk a little bit about design thinking and what is now very popularly called digital customer journeys, which is a very interesting idea. And then Uma will flip that to not the customer journey, but the employee journey and how are employees really embracing digital in their own pathway towards success. And of course, I mean, what is the organization agenda? That if you really have to succeed, what is the role of managers, of leaders, etc. And then I'll come back and talk a few things about how to make that happen. And what we'll try and do is to make sure that we leave adequate time for questions and comments, which of course is always the joy of presenting in MMA. So thank you very much. Let me pull up my presentation. Just give me a second. So here we are. I hope you can all see it. So
yes,
this is really our core theme, and I will actually put myself on. Yeah. So this is our core theme, which is what you can see here. It's called accelerating digital success. Because why are we saying accelerating digital success? Lavanya and I have been colleagues in this company called Zensar Technologies, where she was running strategy and marketing. And I was, of course, CEO for almost 15 years. And we were one of the early pioneers in digital. In the sense, right from companies like Marks and Spencer and various other retailers, companies like Danaher Corporation in the US, one of the large insurance companies. So we were actually in the early stages of discovering digital along with them. And then we started doing some research, and particularly after I left Zensar in the last, in 2016, 2017, we came across some interesting points that look, digital, everybody talks about. But almost 80% of digital transformation efforts either do not succeed at all, or they don't succeed to meet the end objective, which really means that what they really started off with, lots of hype, lots of expectation, has not been delivered. So we said, let's start doing some research on that. And we had a team working on it. And then last year, of course, in March, when COVID hit, and many of us had to do a lot of our work from home, that's when we collaborated virtually and said, look, let's really work on our areas of competence and put together a model of digital success, which will hopefully flip the percentage from 20% success and 80% failure to 80% success and 20% failure. And fortunately, we've had the opportunity to experiment with some companies and really see whether these ideas are working. So what you're really looking at today is a model that is working already, and which we hope that as we go forward, we will do both research and consulting and training around it, make sure it succeeds. So I think that's basically the premise of what we're talking about. So, sorry, it's got stuck. Give me a sec. I think I'm having a bit of a problem with my.
It's not moving, sir.
Yeah, it's getting stuck. That's what I'm.
Shankar, can you just bring it on the screen? You say, then they will keep moving. Or
No,
Lavanya would like to do
that. No, don't worry. I will. I think it'll work.
Okay.
I'm just loading one more.
Yeah, I got it.
Hopefully it'll work. Yeah.
That's
so
fine.
This is, I'll just set the context a little bit. This is actually a McKinsey slide. And as we see one of the prime reasons that digital fails is also here. And I think, Ravi, you mentioned the whole concept of, we are all above 30 or whatever. And most of us, unfortunately or fortunately, are digital immigrants. We didn't really get born with digital. I bought my first mobile phone probably in 1994 or 1995, which was one of those very big Siemens phones. And we've kind of graduated and stumbled and found our way to digital. People like Lavanya are much younger, of course. May have been a digital native. Certainly, many of our children and grandchildren are born with the mobile phone. So the question doesn't arise of their not knowing it. But the problem is that when you're talking in an organization, or even Digital India for that matter, you're always stuck with the fact that, look, there are many, many digital natives, many digital immigrants, a few digital natives, and how do we get these people to work together? So, and the confusing part is also the array of technologies. I mean, I'm just listing 7 out there. I mean, you all know about it. You heard about cloud computing, Internet of Things, mobile, business intelligence, artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality, virtual reality, and now, of course, quantum and 5G. So the minute you say all this, in the boardroom, people start switching off, saying, oh, this is technology. Let's call that fellow who manages technology and give him digital. So you already failed there. What is interesting is to understand not even the middle layer, and I'll come back to the middle layer, but the bottom layer. Why do we do anything we do? Now, one core, Mr. Purushothaman was talking about, the large SAP HANA implementation they're doing in multiple countries. I mean, so the prime focus of anything significant you do, which is cathartic for the organization, is to enhance productivity. I mean, we want all resources of whether it's capital or labor or machine, etc., to perform better. So that's one big initiative. The second thing, which I'll talk about a little more later, is we want to improve experience. I mean, I myself manage digital as chairman of the IT strategy committee for State Bank of India. And when we launched our YONO online service, we said, look, this should really, I mean, today we are finding that it's growing at a rate that even we can't comprehend because so many people are embracing it. Because they are really improving their own experience of dealing with the bank. And I'm sure, whether it's a bank or a retail company or a manufacturing organization, everybody is trying to improve customer experience and employee experience, and we'll talk about that. The third, which is interesting, is digital is actually enabling people to find new business models. And let's move forward and see what it means. And if you look at the middle layer now, how is all this happening? As you can see, improving the experience is happening through a combination of digital and physical experiences, robotics, robotic process automation, IoT, or the sensors across the shop floor or across cities sometimes are connecting everything. Knowledge work and manufacturing are being automated. Then you have tools like big data, analytics, and I'll come to analytics a little bit later. The social matrix where everybody is connected. And it's anything as a service. A time will come when we will no longer pay for any capital asset, and the capex moving to opex, which is what cloud computing does, will make that happen. So the middle part is the outcome, but the third part is what we are attacking. So I'm saying the first thing to do about digital is say that, look, what is the benefits in the bottom layer you can see. So to give you a few examples, if you look at all these, insurance, for instance, I mean, are you aware that 15% of global insurance is now with usage-based insurance? Not the good old life insurance policies or property insurance we used to take for a lifetime, but young people saying, okay, I'm going out on a date for 4 hours, and can I insure myself just for that period? You all are experiencing travel insurance, which you can just buy before you travel somewhere, etc. E-commerce, of course, we all know today. I mean, most of e-commerce is being enabled by bots or what they call social networks and cognitive shoppers. Retail, I mean, even when COVID started, and if you were in, my friend Badri, who's here from Virginia in the US, will remember. In fact, recently we were talking, and when he decides to buy something, he's just placing it on the internet and maybe going out to a Costco or wherever and picking up the stuff. A day will come when the picking up the stuff will also happen not by people putting it in your car, but robots will come out and put it in your car. Manufacturing, of course, I mean, whether it's field service, whether it's robotics on the shop floor. I was in a discussion with the ABB global chairman 2 years ago, and he was telling us about a wonderful factory they have in just outside Beijing, which is manufacturing robots. And the entire workforce is robots. So robots producing robots for robotics. So imagine the future that we are moving towards. Finance, of course, I mean, today blockchain, unfortunately today, there's a lot of negative hype around Bitcoin, etc. But I mean, at the end of the day, is blockchain, distributed ledgers, which will change the world. And healthcare, which is in every news item today. Today, I mean, how many of us would ever see a doctor? I mean, it is all about trying to make sure that telemedicine works for us. We are consulting doctors online. And of course, whether it's in the field or 3D printing, etc., all that shit. So what I'm saying is, whether it is government, whether it is business and industry, whether it's education, whether it's anything at all, there is nothing which is not felt the impact of digital. So moving a little forward, this is something you're aware of, but I'll just tell you. in the good old days, I remember, we used to have a metric when I was running any public limited company called return on capital employed. All of you will remember ROCE. We also had a metric saying what is the employee productivity in the industry I come from, which is IT services. Both these have been tossed out of the window because people are saying, if you're employing capital, there's something wrong with you. Why am I saying this? Take the 4 success stories of the decade and the reason why the American stock exchanges always stay high. NASDAQ went up last night, even when the Dow Jones and the S&P index came down. Because a company like Uber, for instance, which is today the world's largest taxi company, owns no vehicles. A company like Facebook owns no content. It's your content, my content, which they're happily bandying around. And Alibaba.com or of course Amazon are big retailers which don't own inventory, and Airbnb, and here it's Oyo rooms in India, but are becoming the world's largest accommodation provider. So the interesting point is, what is their core competence? Their core competence is clearly not asset ownership. The core competence is data aggregation, knowing the customer, making sure that customer demand and supplier capability are instantaneously matched on a digital platform. What is then happening is that there are 3 types of digital models emerging, which is what we've researched in great detail for our book. One was the original cost model. So when you talk about Google, Facebook, etc., why cost? There's zero cost because nobody wants to pay for anything. So everything is free. In LinkedIn, you may move at some stage from a free model to slightly paying for it, which is a freemium model, as they call it. But it's ultra low cost. Aggregating buyers, giving you price transparency, and slowly you move to the experience model. Today, when you want to see a movie, of course, in Chennai, when a new movie is released, you still want to go to the theater. But in many places, people are saying, I don't want to go to the theater. Okay, I've been watching one series on Netflix for the last 6 months. I watch it for 10 minutes. I switch to something else because I have a meeting. Netflix will remind me saying, oh, do you want to continue watching that movie? And everything is like orchestrated for me to get instant gratification, no ticketing, nothing at all, and very, very low friction. And of course, it'll know what I see and it'll show me more stuff or more movies that I would like to see, which are similar to that. And in a sense, it's kind of biasing itself towards what my preferences are. And what is most exciting today, of course, is the platform model. So it is building those ecosystems, like I said, Airbnb does or Uber does, crowdsourcing information, everything is available from the community, and orchestrating data and becoming a digital marketplace. So this is where we have to understand that even in our own companies, we could well be adopting a platform model or an experience model, but we're moving away from the cost model. And companies which are into the right-hand side of this transition are the companies which tend to succeed much more. So now to come to what we try to do in our book. The first thing we analyzed is, what are the pulls of COVID? If I ask you as a quiz, what is the biggest pull of COVID? You'll say social distancing, because social distancing or people working from our homes was something that we would never have thought of earlier. We're a very, very social community and country, but now we're all used to it. But apart from this pull, there's also been this huge digital push. Literally every 3 months, there'll be an array of new technologies coming through, and we don't need to master them, but we need to understand them enough to be able to deploy them effectively. Data and analytics, of course, is almost like a living organism by itself, the speed at which it is changing. And I'll just give you 1 or 2 examples of that. Customer journeys, which my colleague Lavanya will talk about. Career skills and new leadership, with Uma will talk about. And what we'll end with saying that, look, so how do we put all this together? If there are so many pieces to the jigsaw puzzle, how does success start happening when we put an innovation ecosystem together? And how do we kind of re-engineer our processes, et cetera, to build what we call the post-COVID? So this is and I promise you, we won't make it complex. It's just a kind of a tour of all these aspects of digital transformation. Just a very quick starting point. We all know how it's moved. I started getting interested in digital in 2011, but we've all started experiencing with cloud computing and using our mobile phones for more than just making phone calls. 2016, we started understanding big data, business intelligence, analytics, started understanding stuff like dashboards and getting very pretty ways of presenting what we were trying to see. 2018, we said, can we use it to get new customers, rather than just trying to get data for ourselves and get the employees to manage their own learning and their own processes, etc. And now we are truly, truly beginning to master how does collaboration work through digital. And any company which has not got there is still probably struggling at the 2018 level, but that's okay. You'll get there. Everybody has to get there to be successful in business. If you look at the technologies itself, and I won't bore you with spending too much time on this, but I mean, the first wave was what they call the SMAC stack, which is social media, mobility, analytics, and cloud. The second wave is when the sensors and beacons started coming in. So Internet of Things, or IoT. People started getting very fussy about what is their user interface, what is their user experience, that is the UI UX. Blockchain started coming in and moved beyond Bitcoin to actually enable multi-client transactions to happen. In the third wave, we started seeing computer eye or computer vision, especially in warehousing, etc. We started seeing what Satya Nadella calls mixed reality, which is augmented reality, virtual reality. I mean, to give you one completely unusual example, we do a lot of work in the social sector in something called lighthouse communities. And when you get a person from the slums who wanders into our lighthouse and says, I think I want to work in that hospital, but I'm scared. I mean, all that we do is we actually give them a virtual reality headset. And before they know it, they're transported into the operating theater of a hospital. And they see a person like them, somebody who looks like her or looks like him, feeling the pulse, taking the pressure, and they say, oh my God, if she can do it, I can also. So virtual reality, as they say, I mean, they used to say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but virtual reality is worth 1,000 pictures, because that is the intimate sense of immersion that it brings. Robotics and robotic process automation, we know that. And if I have time at the end of it, and there are any questions, I can give you some examples of robotics, which are really inspiring. 3D printing, which is, of course, you can print with new materials, print anything you want rather than buying it from the shop. Future waves, the way we see it in India itself, I mean, as you've seen, Reliance Jio is very aggressively talking about 5G. One thing we said in the last MMA session is that we definitely want to keep China out of 5G, because we want to make sure that the crown jewels of information are protected from third-party providers. Quantum computing, which can kind of completely change the way we envisage the speed of computers. Cognitive automation, or doing it very intelligently, like the human brain would do. Social listening, understanding what people are talking about on the internet, what is the chatter, how do we address it, how do we address negative sentiment, etc. Collaborating in an augmented fashion, which is what we need to do now, because I mean, a lot of managers are getting fed up of people always working from home. How do we get these guys together? How do we have a team meeting in the coffee shop? So all this is being kind of almost simulated now by computers. And of course, all this under the big umbrella of cybersecurity. So this is the technology array that we're talking about. Probably one of the most interesting applications is in manufacturing. I mean, I'm sure all of you or most of you would have heard of Industry 4.0, where connectivity, data, new technologies, new business models, automation, everything is coming together. Whether it is in the ABB robotics factory outside Beijing, business models, automation, everything is coming together. Whether it is in the ABB robotics factory outside Beijing, or indeed, I'm sure Mr. Purushothaman's factory, or any one of you who are looking at advanced factories that are emerging today. I remember in Make in India, one of the role model heroes was a plant of GE in a place called Chakan, which is in Pune. And if you go there, it's completely automated. So you argue that, look, oh my God, I thought India's problem was employment. Why is this one a role model? But that is the paradox we always face. On is it employment oriented or capital intensive? And those are the issues that we need to address through digital. So very quickly to talk about the changes in data and analytics. We all know that data, that was what my PhD was on in the area of knowledge management, converting data to information, to knowledge, to wisdom. And we all knew that transition. But then, as I said, when we started representing data through dashboards, through scorecards, we made it better descriptive, more easy to understand, a lot of visualization, etc., etc. But people have very soon realized that all this is still sense and respond or reactive, which means we are still making very pretty graphs and computer analytics to say what went wrong in the past. What we should be doing, as indeed an Amazon does or a Uber does, is predicting what can go right in the future. So that is the exploratory side. And that is what the beauty of today's data management is, that when you move towards predictive modeling, which really are predicting the behavior, like Netflix is predicting what I would like to see, and then prescribing, saying, why don't you watch this movie? So predictive and prescriptive analytics enabled by large volumes of data coming into computers, which is machine learning and artificial intelligence to make those predictions happen. So I'm just oversimplifying it. But what it really does is go from what happened to understanding why did it happen, what could happen, and what should happen. So this, once you understand this framework, analytics becomes a way of life for you. And there are so many tools available. In fact, I know Uma herself has a center in Chennai, which is a Center for Artificial Intelligence and Analytics, where they're teaching young people how to really think like this. And this is actually taken from a company called Systech, which is their partner. And Systech actually does leading edge work in analytics. And if you look at, as I said, data and analytics, I mean, it's databases to big data, what I mentioned, dashboards, then business intelligence, artificial intelligence, predictive and prescriptive, completely automating the analytics process, and then moving towards analytics of sentiments. Okay, if somebody is speaking to you in a harsh tone, can the computer recognize it and have a response which is very different from somebody who's having a meaningful conversation? Cognitive, how do you bring intelligence into the process? The point I was making earlier. I mean, it's a good old knowledge management of taking data to information to knowledge and embedding that in the wisdom of the organization. So let me stop here by saying that, look, when you think of digital, don't just think of improving your core operations. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that's old-fashioned. But think of how you can completely automate, informate, and build new business streams. And that is exactly what people are excited about when it comes to true digital success. So now I'm going to request my colleague, Lavanya, to take you through. So how do you think about all this? I mean, is there a way by which we can do thinking which enables us to think better about digital and how to use it more effectively? And then to kind of address the whole digital customer journey as you. Lavanya, over to you.
Thank you, Ganesh. So ladies and gentlemen, with that context, with heavy on technology, business, I think I'd like to spend a minute talking about our own experience of digital in the industry. The whole definition of digital, and I being a marketing professional, there was an immense amount of exploration on what does digital mean. And there was a lot of jargon thrown in of social media, like Ganesh mentioned, the smack and etc. But I think the important shift, which I think was really transformational for the industry, is that it took the conversation away from all of these myriad technologies to the business itself, to the customer's business. And I think that really defined digital for us at Zensar when I was there, and also is a lead into what we are talking about in this next segment called design thinking, right? So the fundamental, what we are talking about in this case, the business or an individual, and the scale changes. Design thinking, as we understand it, is often misunderstood to be for designers, for user experience, but design thinking could be applied to anything in life, as to technology, as to business, as to computer interfacing, etc. So this model runs on the premise of having empathy for the user, and which is really the first step on our slide here. And for that, I just thought I'd run through an example of where empathy could really transform what we're doing for our business. We all are familiar with Airbnb. Ganesh alluded to the case earlier as well in his slide. And Airbnb, when they had launched, was going through heavy losses. And in fact, I think they were making something to the tune of $200 a week when they had launched. The founders, having been so excited with this transformational idea, were wondering why it's not making money for them. And what they did was that they started using the app. One of the founders started using the app himself and realized that it was terrible in terms of the kind of picture quality of the facilities that were part of their Airbnb network. So he immediately rented a camera, visited all the facilities that were already on the network, and took pictures himself and uploaded it onto the app. In a week, they saw a complete shift in their business. Their numbers started soaring, right? So nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with deep analysis. It was just putting himself in the shoes of the user of his app, and things changed transformationally. And then, of course, we know the success of Airbnb since then. So the next step I would talk about is converging on a definition of what is the problem at hand, right? So if design thinking is being used for solutioning, we start with the user to identify what that problem could be, but in defining it is half the battle won. And for this, I'd like to probably take the instance of Starbucks, another popular example for all of us. So Starbucks started off with wanting to, again, do something in the digital arena. A lot of people were also launching apps, but they were probably the first to define the problem of the need for digitalization very differently. They could have said that they wanted to create an app for coffee ordering, right? But they defined it as increasing customer convenience and increasing customer loyalty. And they believed that customer convenience would help them in shooting up the revenues. And so the entire drawing of the experience of what that customer would feel just by a simple feature of making it voice enabled, people on the go while they're driving, while they're at work, and are able to quickly voice activate the app. And the experience is as though they would be talking to a barista at the shop and saying, hey, Liz, here's my order. To be able to say that in such a conversational manner to their phone. And by the time they reach the Starbucks shop, to have their coffee ready for them, where there would be a person at the counter offering their coffee with their name on it, right? So that definition of the problem of improving the convenience was really one thing which was a shifter. But the definition, the few more things to keep in mind would be not to have it broad enough, not to have it narrow enough that it doesn't allow the creative freedom, but then also to keep it narrow enough to keep it manageable. So not to have this blue sky thinking with no limits, which then does not help address the problem. We then move to the phase of ideation. And ideation, of course, is to bring in as many diverse ideas as possible. Here, the example to take probably could be Uber Eats. Again, Uber from the earlier slides. Uber Eats, again, as a business model, they've adopted design thinking. They do it in every little business process. They follow design thinking. And in one of the aspects in the ideation stage, they ensure that there is an interdisciplinary meet ever so often to ensure that there is a huge diversity when they are ideating. They also have the quarterly visits that their own design team makes to the restaurants that they're catering from, so that the designer himself or herself is aware of what that experience is. And they ensure that that empathy, the definition of what is required, is built into the ideation process. And they also ensure, quick iterations, ensuring that they're innovating constantly, which is the fundamental of design thinking. The next step is on the prototyping. Here, I think an interesting example would be of the brown toothbrush. They have the electric toothbrushes. The founders or the CEOs at that CEO at that point wanted to ensure that they're using the best of technology to improve their electric toothbrush. And they talked about using IoT, wanting to have music stream when people are brushing their teeth, so the experience is excellent. They also talked about fitting in IoT in a sense that you're able to say how rigorously you're brushing, and almost like an athletic activity tracker. But the designers who were brought in said that there is no need to be bringing in everything that is new in terms of tech into your product. The point is to go back to the user and understand. So they prototyped something which just ensured that there was a USB charger for the brush, and they built in a model whereby the head of the toothbrush could be ordered while you're brushing your teeth, because we often tend to leave the brush in the washroom. When you exit, you forget that you need a replacement. So to ensure that it's timely, they integrated that with the device, the ordering system, along with the toothbrush itself. So this prototype succeeded hugely, and that's what they finally adopted. And the next step is, of course, to test it, which is what Brown did. They ensured that they created a prototype and tested it with their users, and were able to immediately integrate that into their product definition. An important part of the design thinking process, and the beauty really is, it while on the chart here it looks linear, it really is not. The point is that it is non-linear, and you can keep going back and forth on various stages, but just the fact that it's a way of life to ensure that we are following these kind of focal points ensuring that we are aware of our user requirements and putting that into designing our processes, services, products, etc. We're seeing that in our technology companies, as the shift has happened to digital over the past decade and more, companies are seeing the importance of design thinking, and many of them have administered it in different fashions, like companies like Wipro, Cognizant, Infosys have all acquired design houses and integrated them. Some others like Accenture have homegrown their design skills, design thinking teams, and have made that part of their project delivery. And closer home, and because the context being COVID, how can we forget? There are so many companies that in the time, in the face of crisis, have really transformed their businesses to be able to be more relevant to the user's requirement in trying times. One of the examples that I would take is of Unilever. Unilever, of course, had one of the product lines of sanitizers, but with the incomplete skyrocketing of the demand for sanitizers, they went from 700K output in terms of the number of items of sanitizer to 100 million over that period of the last lockdown, right? And what they did was completely converted their entire deodorant facilities to apply to the sanitizer market. So obviously it was a quick thinking and agile system to be able to deliver to the need. The other company that is really interesting was the Swiggy, which I oft quote because it hits home quite closely. For all of us who were at home locked up, we wanted our groceries delivered at home. I think Ravi mentioned about how we all went under lockdown on March 24th. And in the first week of April, Swiggy was agile enough to release Swiggy Genie, which was about delivering your groceries at home. So in a matter of 10 days, they were able to shift their entire business process to accommodate the user, to accommodate the consumer. So with that, on to the next slide, I've covered most of it, but I just wanted to mention the importance of the customer journeys in this entire design thinking process. So customer journeys, like we talked about Swiggy, we talked about all the other companies, Uber, Airbnb, etc. If we are able to visualize the journey that our customers experience along with the product or service, a visualization which has the various touch points mapped out with a clear picture of what are the outcomes at each one of those touch points. What do we want them to feel at each one of those interactions? What are their pain points? A visual mapping of this nature helps us design better for our customers. What it reveals are really those moments of truth of an experience of the consumer or the user with the brand that companies represent. And becomes all the more relevant now with when there is no time to shift, when with the lockdown, things had changed overnight for people. Work from home, people really suddenly had to manage all teams, clients, etc. from from home where we live otherwise. So how do we quickly adapt? I think to be able to remap the user and the customer journey is again something that the adapting is a point of great relevance, and the agility again that Ravi had mentioned earlier, very critical to businesses. So with that, I'll just hand to Uma.
Yeah, just to provide continuity. I mean, what Lavanya said is so true, because I remember I spent a year as digital advisor to McKinsey & Company. And even in the US, for some insurance companies, for instance, we used to craft out a new customer journey every 10 days, because there were so many opportunities with new technologies come in to provide those additional digital touchpoints. So it's actually an amazing field. And now we'll kind of flip it to, so how about the employee? So how do the employees benefit? How do they leverage? How do they get a better experience for themselves with digital transformation? So Uma, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Ganesh, and thank you, Group Captain and Ravi, for inviting us to unveil the book with all the members. And it's indeed a privilege for us to talk about our journey through the book and our insights in terms of the digital transformation process that organizations are going through. So you heard Ganesh and Lavanya talk a little bit about customer journeys and how digital transformation is forcing companies to rethink how they connect with customers. Now, the same kind of a concept is very much relevant in the context of employees too. But it's a reality that most organizations who have been either pulled into the digital transformation process without being prepared, or even those who have been fully prepared, and especially in the last couple of years because of the COVID realities, what we're finding is a large number of organizations have looked at customer journeys, have looked at applying design thinking principles in mostly customer-facing situations. So most of them have therefore have had to contend with, they have an organization structure, the learning process, the performance management system, everything that goes towards defining the organization culture, which is so very pivotal for digital transformation journey. All of these elements have actually been defined and designed for a pre-digital era. And that is something that has been carried forward even into the post-digital or the digital transformation journey that the organizations are undergoing. And as a result of this, many organizations have realized that there is a huge disconnect in terms of people who come into organizations expecting certain experiences, particularly if you're used to the experience of being, of dealing with organizations or companies like Flipkart or Amazon and others in your day-to-day life. And to that extent, you are being mollycoddled to some extent. You are being serenaded by some of these companies, and you, above everything else, you are able to make your own choice. You are able to decide who you want to, what kind of products you want to buy, and at what price you want to buy. And so there is that whole democratic process of how you experience the product and how you decide where you want to spend your money. So those kind of experiences, employees, whether they are natives, digital natives, or they are digital immigrants, all of us are experiencing this in our day-to-day life with our consumer products, particularly banking and several other areas. So when with such experience, you come into an organization and you find that here is an organization which is so different, far removed from the realities of how we are trying to address the customer needs and how beautifully we are redesigning their journeys and trying to do things differently in the context of digital. So similar expectations employees also have. And therefore, now organizations are realizing that in order to be a truly transformed organization, when we say people are so critical for the success of that journey, we need to address some of the core dimensions of how people are brought into the organization, how we deal with them while they are in the organization, how they learn, and so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, what this particular slide mentions is that employees are really looking for an enjoyable experience where the digital tools, the digital environment that we need to put in place need to recognize the fact that people are no longer working in silos, that the culture can be driven by a top-down approach. They are living in an environment where they are constantly connected socially with others within the organization as well as others, thanks to digital. Therefore, when it comes to deciding which organization I want to be part of, or for that matter, I have certain aspirations and how do I get to these aspirations, How do I achieve those aspirations? And that is my priority. And therefore, what kind of learning I want to acquire. They would want to lean in on those social networks. They would like to connect with coaches and experts available within the organization or outside the organization. And working collaboratively with various teams, they recognize, organizations are recognizing that in order for us to ensure that people are happy being a part of the organization, to realize their own aspirations, as well as to achieve business goals, it's important to ensure that learning happens on the fly. And that means that no longer can we fix the boundary of the programs like we used to do once upon a time, saying, okay, we have built this fantastic e-learning program. But today, they would like to have content made available, personalized and customized, curated for specific needs, specific times, for specific individuals, based on the styles that we are comfortable with. And that's where AI comes in, and the bots, together with all of these other things that I mentioned, actually create that phenomenal experience for these employees. And that's what has been these kind of elements to create this kind of unique experience and enjoyable experience for employees. It's something that a platform like Skills Alpha has tried to create for employees. And I would like to just highlight that there are these 4 dimensions which Skills Alpha is trying to create or address for these employees. The first dimension is basically to look at where is my aspiration, what is my aspiration, and where do I go? How do I get there? What are my skill gaps? And will this organization enable me to achieve my aspiration, and yet the managers want to make sure that their goals are met? So which means the second dimension is creating that skills ecosystem. And the third dimension is providing the coaching, the mentoring support. And fourth and most important element is recognizing that there is a lot of learning that's going to be happening through the peers, and facilitating all of these 4 elements is what this unique journey will be all about, which Skills Alpha is trying to address as an example in the digital transformation journey of an organization. I'd like to move to the next slide, where I want to highlight that while organizations are trying to reimagine, they need to reimagine this employee journey, particularly because you have both digital natives, digital immigrants we spoke about, and this whole continuum of how do we attract the right people, enabling them and retaining them is something that digital platforms are capable of facilitating. It's extremely important to also recognize that in order to make all of this happen, in order to ensure that the digital goals, digital transformation goals are achieved, while employees' aspirations are being met, leaders need to rethink their own styles of how they deal with people. And gone are the days whether it's a manufacturing company or a company which was born 50 years back, even 20 years back. Typically, organization used to look up to the CEO or the leader and say, okay, you are going to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. But thanks to data, thanks to multiple trajectories through which every individual in the organization is interacting with people from outside, with vendors, with customers, with amongst employees, and all of this collaboration and other things we spoke about in my previous slide, there is a lot of insight that is now getting generated. And at every level, people are in a position to look at a problem from multiple perspectives. Therefore, it is extremely important for the leader to look down and look at all of these people and take them together to figure out what is that new truth that we are discovering, based on which, what is it that we need to do differently, whether it's for customers or for employees and others. And at the same time, a lot of times there is a lot of fuzziness, and maybe there will not be total clarity even for the leaders and others who are dealing with these insights, because certain patterns emerge. And as we are seeing, for instance, in COVID scenario, you got to take certain bets upon certain lines of treatment or certain lines of diagnosis and so on and so forth. And Therefore, how do we, even at that stage, take the people along with us and show them that kind of a vision, which may be little far-fetched, but it's also important for the leaders, therefore, to sell these ideas to the board, to sell the ideas to employees, to sell the ideas to even collaborators, and take them all on to this journey. And that is how leadership is going to be profoundly, I would say, very different from the kind of leadership styles that we might have encountered in the past. And this kind of inquisitiveness and this kind of creativity, if this is something that they can carry forward, I think it is really going to be very, very meaningful for the organization to be able to achieve their digital transformation goals. So let me stop here and then pass the baton on to Ganesh for further discussions.
Thanks a lot, Uma. I think, so I'll just take a few minutes to kind of round it off for all of you who've been listening. And I mean, we've kind of taken you one level deeper into the research. Obviously, if you read the book, you'll get maybe 2 or 3 levels deeper into much more incisive case studies and ideas and techniques, etc. But just to, I mean, first of all, the big advantage of digital for India has been not only, as I said earlier, transforming government, business industry, healthcare, etc., but also spawning a whole new generation of entrepreneurs. In fact, right here in this audience, we have Mridula Sankyan, who heads Global Talent Track and Skills Alpha, the company that Uma mentioned. Similarly, we have Ipsita, who heads the complete customer management, customer journey management, and what is called digital marketing business for a company called Calzoom Advisors. And we have my friend from Dubai and Abu Dhabi, Kanak Madrecha, who actually gave up a very flourishing career to help people in the Middle East with digital. So I'm saying there's a huge amount of work, both research and consulting happening in this area, which is very, very encouraging. So very quickly, I mean, I mentioned innovation earlier. Interesting point is, and I won't, this is actually one of my favorite slides, because when I was in Harvard Business School, I had the privilege of encountering 3 gurus of innovation. First person whom all of you have heard of, called Michael Porter, whose work on innovation clusters has been absolutely outstanding. And this is beyond his initial work on 5 forces theories. Then, of course, there's Clay Christensen, whose whole premise was that if you have something which is very, very disruptive, just make it a separate company. And third is my own personal guru, a gentleman called Michael Tushman. And the Tushman model is what I'm talking about here, that through innovation, and you need to do that very aggressively in digital, happens when it is ambidextrous, which means while you are doing incremental innovation on one hand, you need to spot disruptive innovations. And if any of you have read the book on Jeff Bezos and Amazon, a company which continually innovates, at the same time I've had at least 5 distinct disruptive innovations, the reason why they are such an enormously successful company today. So ambidextrous innovation. There are also 2 forms of innovation that people are experimenting with in digital. One is, of course, internal, employee innovation networks, giving a lot of rewards and recognition for innovation. And the third, which is what, I mean, one of the companies I was advising, Bajaj Finserv, which is arguably the most successful non-banking finance company in this country. I mean, what they do is total open innovation. So, I mean, I remember getting onto a plane with Mr. Sanjeev Bajaj, and we were literally going country to country, meeting innovators in Tel Aviv, then London, then Boston, then Raleigh, then San Francisco, and back to Bangalore, just to find those 40, 50 young companies who could be part of our open innovation network. So innovation, I mean, unarguably is one of the most important elements if you want digital success. So just to close out, I said the opportunities will keep changing. We will see more blockchains, we will see more artificial intelligence, we will see virtual and augmented reality in big shape. Of course, in India, we're going to see a lot of quantum computing and 5G. The National Optical Fiber Network that Prime Minister Modi spoke about on the Independence Day speech really becomes, I mean, really happens, which it should. You'll have 640,000 villages and maybe 250,000 gram panchayats completely enabled with 100 Mbps Wi-Fi. So imagine the power of something like that happening. So just to close, I mean, all processes I mentioned earlier will change, whether it's in banking, whether it's in insurance, education. I mean, I was privileged in Harvard Business School to be part of an experiment called HBX, which is HBX on the transformation platform. And today a professor can teach a class of 90 students, all of them are in different parts of the world, and can be as close and as knowledgeable about them, thanks to AI, as if they were teaching in the classroom. And recently we were talking to Dean Shrikant Datar, who just took over this year. And he was saying that, look, it no longer matters to Harvard Business School whether somebody is sitting in Adyar in Chennai and attending class in HBX or sitting in the classroom in Boston, because the same experience they're able to replicate for everybody. That's the future. So I think what we're really seeing here is not only business processes being redefined thanks to digital technologies, but business networks, like I mentioned about Harvard Business School, being redesigned, scope being redefined, as we said earlier. So it's a whole new environment out there. How does one think about this? Think of all these simultaneous journeys. We mentioned customer and employees, newer and newer technologies, way to re-engineer processes, way to completely leverage data and analytics, and what Uma talked about, the culture of leadership, the culture of people, skilled and feeling 24/7 on. We can mail this presentation to any of you who are interested, just as I said, to give a context to our conversation. And let me close by this slide, which is saying that this is typically a methodology you could think about. They're saying first think about your stakeholders, your shareholders, your business partners, dealer distributors, of course, your customers and your employees, and see what kind of journeys can digital enable for them, based on which you choose the technology. Don't put the cart before the horse by saying that, look, we will first look at technology and get excited and then try and fit it. Once you choose the technology for the stakeholder, think of how your business process, your business network will have to be redesigned to totally optimize the process and make technology happen. Look at what data emerges. How will you do the analytics around it and make it, as I said earlier, predictive and prescriptive? Look at culture and competencies. Don't ignore that, because that can determine, it can be the weakest link in your chain of making digital happen. And then innovate your way to success. And this has been our experience in working with multiple companies around the country and around the world in seeing how they really make this happen. So finally, of course, this is Lavanya's favorite slide, which I'm using. Which, I mean, there's no instant success. I mean, digital companies, very similar to startups in Silicon Valley, have mastered it by failing more times than the beginner has ever tried. So by not putting your toe in the water and saying, oh my God, is this too much for me? It's not going to accomplish it. You will fail a few times, you will learn, you will experiment, and then you will actually succeed as you go forward. So just to close, I mean, this is really the genesis of the book we wrote, and I'll stop here. And of course, I mean, you're most welcome to buy it on Amazon, or you can actually write to us and we can get you an autographed copy. We have a person here who's a good friend called Rohit, who actually ships autographed copies to anybody who wants. But we are truly delighted, and let me conclude by again thanking Group Captain Vijay Kumar and Ravi for giving us this opportunity. And I think we still have at least 20 minutes for any questions or anything that any of you would like to add, because as I said, we are also students of digital and by no means are calling ourselves experts. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ganesh, Uma and Lavanya. Really fascinating, insightful evening, because like watching a movie. We want to do so many things. At least MMA, me and President discuss how we can take digital to MMA. Then we want to really use it, connect with each one of them, connect to them, targeted programs and targeted. I think it's a great insight. And we got a couple of questions. I think over 850 participants are watching this program live. And I got a couple of questions on the YouTube and Facebook, which I'll share with you a short while from now. In the meanwhile, Ganesh, you would like to address the question, what is there in the chat box? You want me to read them, or you would like to have a look at them and respond to them?
I can do it. I can do it, not to worry.
The question from Ganesh and Sudalai Muttu, a couple of them are there.
Yeah. So let me start with Mr. Ganeshan's question, saying that he says that, look, today we see all students from school to college studying online. Marketing people are also online in this business. So in all this, are we missing customer direct contacts? Do you think this will change our future mindset, and are we missing the human touch? Uma, any thoughts on that as the human expert?
See, the point, the moot point about anything to do with AI is that it's yet another tool in the hands of humans. And how do we make this tool deliver? By passing on intelligence to that tool. And who passes the intelligence on to this tool? Humans. So therefore, without humans being around, AI tools will have only limited capability, or rather, AI tool can do literally dance to the tune of humans. And therefore, today we are talking about AI for AI. And the more we are able to train with the help of insights, and it is able to give us a feedback, And therefore, this kind of a close collaborative work culture that we can develop with AI, which is something that we all have to come to recognize, that there are some of these mundane activities, repetitive activities, activities which involve a lot of data crunching. It's best done by digital tools, by AI or by robots. But there are more, you can say, sensitive assignments, thinking jobs. These are things which, these are the kind of work assignments which humans will take on more and more in the days to come. Enabled by AI, humans will become even more smarter. That's the way we need to think about AI and digital.
So in a sense, Mr. Deendayal, and I think it also addresses your question, just you asked what will happen to India's unemployment problem if too much digital technologies become the vogue. See, it's an interesting point. And just to take you back into history, even when computers started going mainstream, people said, oh my God, all jobs will be lost and everything will be automated. In reality, more jobs got created. In digital, I mean, it is arguable, and I mentioned robotics earlier. Just to give you one example to support your logic, I've been a great fan of China for many years. Of course, recently our book is not very fanatic about China, but nevertheless. And in all the work I've done in China, one example I can give you of a company in Shenzhen, chip manufacturing, typical electronics. And when I started doing work with them 6 years ago, they employed 3,000 Chinese women, all very diligent, as you can expect, extremely hardworking. 2 years back when I went to China, 3 years back, I mean, we found that the 3,000 Chinese women had been replaced by 1,200 robots, and there were only 300 people employed. So, and each woman was being completely skilled to manage 4 robots each, and the productivity had doubled. So potentially, yes, robotic process automation can eliminate jobs. But don't forget, with sentiment analytics and especially the future of analytics, there's so much opportunity. So my belief is any young person looking at a relatively secure future should really master analytics, because analytics is where the AI, and as Uma was saying, the AI and natural intelligence will have to come together, and that will create lots of problems. So I have never been a believer that all jobs will be lost. On the contrary, and we did some research in NASSCOM almost 2 years ago, the future jobs that will emerge will be people with audiovisual skills, will be great storytellers. I mean, in the good old days, we used to be whacked for telling stories, but the storyteller will become the most important part of your organization because that person is communicating better. So I think those kind of things we should not worry too much about. And
Ganesh, now, sorry, you finished then. I don't know.
I'm just saying, I'll just question and then you can ask the other question. I mean, Chakradhar says the framework looks deterministic. Yes, that is a kind of, the last slide is deterministic, saying that because based on our experience, we try to put everything together. But let me go back by saying that, first look at your customers, because every customer is unique. The journeys will be unique. And from there, you can actually adapt, and what Lavanya was saying very well. So Lavanya, you want to just add to that? I mean, how do you make sure that you are absolutely tuned and listening to each problem rather than trying to, kind of formulate a cookie cutter approach?
Yeah, so in fact, combining a couple of questions, I was also thinking on the human touch one, if I may respond to that. Essentially, I think that human touch, it's also the way you see it. In previous pandemics, and that we talk about in the book as well, they did not have the luxury of the technology we have today. I believe with so many of our stakeholders, we've been able to become more connected thanks to technology. It's probably in new ways. It's probably not in the way that we used to earlier. But I think as humans, as Uma mentioned, we are learning, we are adapting. And what has changed is that customer journey, is that journey of our experience with the various stakeholders. So in fact, I'd like to obviously take an example from home that we have a large family that met, once in a year or once in 2 years. But now, because of this entire state that everyone is, we ensure that we speak once a month, and people from all over the world, wherever they are, they log in because it's prime time or family time. I think that human touch has increased. I think we're also seeing that our customers are able to give us more time online because the travel, the scheduling has become so much easier. And whatever is that opportunity for improvement, to improve this sense of the touch with our clients, employees, with our families, or wherever remotely, I think technology will make that jump of shifting that experience and making it better for us. So I just wanted to address that one as well.
Thanks. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, we've got a number of interesting questions in the social media. Then we can go back to chat box. As you said, unemployment. I distinctly remember the LIC and banks went on a strike when automation was introduced, computer was introduced. Today, if I tell them you have to work without a computer, they'll go on strike again, actually. Yeah, here's a question which has come from Uday Sate from Nagpur. He said, sir, I represent the education sector. Do you think digital transformation in educational institutions can actually make a difference in the learnability and employability of students? Or does the panel feel that the traditional system of education provides better connect between the teachers and the students, hence is more preferable education sector? What's your view on this? Because you have done quite a bit of work on researching digital transformation. Educational sector, what's your views?
No, you're absolutely right. And I think I gave one example of what is happening in Harvard Business School. And even if you look at the National Education Policy, the NEP, I think that kind of, while it doesn't get into detail, it does give insights into what can happen here. But just to give you one example, this morning we were discussing with Mridula, who's the CEO of Global Talent Track. And we were trying to understand, because she has a requirement to train close to 40,000 young people, okay, who may not necessarily be very interested, but they want to be trained for employability. And we were saying that, look, how can we use digital technologies like the Skills Alpha platform, like AI bots, like the whole methodology of maybe 50% through e-learning and not the old e-learning, which was boring, but more of interactive e-learning. And 50% then you redefine what the teacher will do. The teacher is now no longer a boring teacher, chalk and talk converted to PowerPoints, but actually being engaged. I'm teaching a course at one of the universities as we speak. And that is a complete flip classroom. So we're creating videos with interesting people. I actually interviewed Uma and Lavanya for one of those courses. And in each class, we will flip it completely to enable people to ask questions through multiple media. And that flip classroom is going to completely change the way people learn, because you're now learning based on pull rather than learning based on push. So you're not teaching people, you're enabling them to ask their questions and learn. So I think education and skills probably the most fascinating area for application of digital.
Thank you, sir.
I like to add to that,
yes.
What Ganesh said, particularly talking about the education sector, the opportunity for educational institutions to bring together the best of teachers or faculty from anywhere in the world is, for me, a very, very exciting phenomenon. If we can just manage to adapt to this sort of a possibility and adopt this in the way learning and training happens and education happens in institutions, that will be the first step towards transformation. And I'm aware that many institutions are thinking about it or have started implementing that sort of an approach. The second dimension is basically looking at customized learning. I give you what you want, and I don't push, as Ganesh said, every content that is available. And thirdly, it is also now possible for institutions to collaborate with other institutions and thereby create new programs really on the fly. So it's all in all a fantastic opportunity for educational institutions to rethink their own journeys vis-a-vis the students and other stakeholders.
Thank you, madam. Before I request Ganesh to take on the question from Sandhya, there's one question I'll put up. What has come from Mr. Veer Raghavan from Bangalore. He says, Dr. Uma, you talked about the 4 dimensions vital for professional growth. While it seems possible in large organizations, how does one make it applicable in the MSME segment where the resources are limited? And when you talked about Industry 4.0 also, where they really found the big investments are required and which is not possible in MSME, SME sector, where the manufacturing segment, Industry 4.0, one of the solutions. How do you really address this conflicting situation, what's happening between the aspiration and the financial support? Do you think the government should intervene, do something, or organize like us to intervene, do something for them to take it forward?
Wow, that's a very important question and very nicely presented thought process. So I like to divide this into 3 parts. The first one is the capability to reach to higher levels. That capability quotient is today no longer something that we can say we need to depend upon a large organization, the government alone, because that capability is something that you can collaboratively, with the help of the digital resources available in multiple forums and multiple channels, that can be brought together. And with minimal investment and smart investment, it is possible for MSME clusters to come together to figure out how to curate that content and make it available for capabilities to be enhanced for their own employees. So that's part one. The second part is when you're working with large organizations who are going through Industry 4.0 journey themselves. And as a partner or as a supplier, if you have to be aligned with that journey, the whole challenge is, where do I start? And, that's where these large organizations need to once again take a clustered approach. And I'm aware of some manufacturing companies already doing that. And together with the combination of a few vendors and few suppliers and all of these stakeholders coming together, it will be possible to at least reimagine their own journeys, and then expect maybe some investment to come from the government for the core areas, and whatever is going to be customized for the companies, there has to be a kind of a partnership which is going to be required. A new types of partnerships need to be put in place, where the providers of technology, the consumers of technology, and ultimate consumers of products or services provided by MSMEs, they all need to come together in a form of a consortium. And that is what I think in the long run, it is going to be benefiting all the stakeholders.
Thank you, madam. And the number of questions which has come on the mental.
I'll take a few. I'll take a couple.
Yes.
Sandhya is asking a very interesting question, saying that by all the excitement around digital natives, virtual pure plays, recent research says 94% of the businesses continue to be hybrid and traditional. And she's saying what percentage of these will morph into new businesses? Very, very good question. And I've been working on this theme for the last almost 6 years. I mean, just to give you one example, I remember there's an insurance company, and I'll name it, called Discovery Insurance in South Africa. I mean, when we were in discussions with the CEO and the management team, I mean, we were talking about how they can create a completely new business, which they did create, called Vitality. And Vitality is a whole set of wellness centers. And that's around Johannesburg. And now, of course, they're expanding worldwide. But the Vitality chain of wellness centers and the foods, et cetera, that drove more business for the insurance business than they would have imagined earlier. So it's almost like a tail wagging the dog. You're creating a new business, enabling it with Internet of Things and everything else, and making it drive new business. So I think a lot of companies which are now leading edge, I explained Bajaj Finserv, for instance. I think these are companies which are saying that, look, we have to completely redefine the paradigms. It will take time, but digital is not going anywhere in a hurry. And I think you'll see newer and newer avatars of AI happening. So I think that's clearly something that will lead to more than the 6%. As I said, I think 20% of the companies that we are reviewing have the potential to make magnificent changes. And some of them, of course, will be born in digital, like the examples we took. I mean, the Ubers and the Airbnbs would not even have been conceived if it hadn't been for digital. So, yeah, so I think let me take Mr. Kumarison's second question. He says, COVID-19 creating a paradigm shift that is realigning every system towards a global, and once, especially towards digital mode, was also inevitable. And I think this is the question that we actually answered. How we miss people in person. I think we've answered it, but let me again say that, look, for instance, I mean, we are using a platform, as you know, called Zoom. Now, I was interviewing Eric, who's the founder of Zoom, about, when was it, 6 months back at the India Internet Forum. And we asked him, Eric, saying that, look, I mean, today people are getting, okay, Zoom is great, it's very easy to use, etc., but what's the future? He says the future is that, we will be able to get you to smell the coffee of the person you're talking with on Zoom. I mean, it's just by artificial intelligence and simulation, but imagine that. Because what we miss really, and in fact, there is a company called Globant, which used to be a client of mine. Globant is one of the most successful digital companies, born in Argentina, and now, of course, it's headquartered on the New York Stock Exchange. But if you look at what Martin Migoya, the CEO, says, I mean, Martin says that, look, we will solve the problem of random people getting together over lunch and coming up with great innovations. He says, we will use AI. For instance, let's assume you're 30 members of a team or maybe 300 people in that group. And AI will figure out based on your responses during the workday, saying, here is an interesting person. She works in Argentina. You're working in Chennai, but you two will get along and you can create magic for the organization. So they actually create this Friday afternoon, 1 hour, meet somebody you don't know break. But the two people will come together, of course, on Zoom, but the conversation will be led by AI, saying that, look, I mean, okay, can you explain this, etc. It's almost like, group captain guiding the conversation, imagining an AI bot leading the conversation. And they're saying that this will result in more innovation than even if you're randomly met at coffee and had lunch. So this is completely AI taking over the world. So it's actually, this is cognitive AI. So I'm saying you're really trying to make these kind of things happen. So I think that's what we're seeing. So you will hopefully find, hopefully, of course, we'll all get back to work. I'm so delighted we are all back in office since yesterday. God save Maharashtra and make sure that we are staying in office. But even in situations where, let's say, 6 months you have to be at not coming, you won't get taken by surprise the way we were in March of last year. So I think technology is also changing and hopefully that will evolve.
I'd like to take this question.
A lot of more questions.
Sorry.
Take the next question. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'll just take this question. How will 40,000 persons be trained and what is the system to be applied with expertise to do so? I'll try to be brief. See, the problem with any of our current training programs, especially when you're going to train large number of people, is that we take a cookie cutter approach. You design, this is a program, this is the objective, these are going to be the learning outcomes. But the fact of the matter is, each individual out there has got a different set of starting point, different set of skills, different aspirations, and different motivations to do the program. So we are now trying to see how, using Skills Alpha, first of all, how do we actually motivate the individual to learn in the first place? That happens by putting the mirror in front of the candidate and saying, look, if this is where you are and you think you know, the mirror tells you you don't know what you don't know. And thereafter, giving him or her a menu of options in terms of what are the courses what are the course pathways that you could be adopting. Pick the one which you feel is the one that I want to take, and thereafter get on to that journey, monitor, and keep refreshing the content, and also keep advising the candidate with the help of the bot, which is all what is happening through Skills Alpha platform. And that is where the curated content comes into picture, because every individual who is different will require some things to be repeated 5 times, and somebody else will just get it in a jiffy. And that is really the smart way of learning and training in the days to come. Over to you, Ganesh, for other questions.
Just take one more question, Group Captain, and give it back to you.
Yes, please go ahead.
A very interesting question from Rashmi Matthew. And she says that, look, I mean, in marketing, we've all heard about, and this is to you, Lavanya. So I'm saying we've all heard about go-to-market. You build a product, you build a go-to-market strategy, and then you kind of tweak it a little bit, make incremental changes, etc., etc. So that's been our understanding of marketing 101. But suddenly we're talking about process, prototype, test, repeat, etc., etc. So what is going to happen to the good old Philip Kotler books on marketing?
It's a tough one. If it's the last one, mine, okay, I'll take it. This is classic Ganesh, Group Captain. Okay, so Rashmi, thanks for that question. And we could have a long discussion after. But as I see it, go-to-market is the entire continuum of what needs to be done to ensure your product reaches the audience, ensure we are having the right CRMs, etc., etc. But design thinking, I think, ensures that it's a failure safety, because you are ensuring that you have the user in mind, you're prototyping and ensuring that you are designing for the user in advance. And instead, so it becomes like a critical and a solid start to your go-to-market. So we are not replacing one by the other, but we are ensuring that design thinking helps create a product that is more failure-proof and has the user at the center, and also that you're making the mistakes early through the cycle of your prototype, testing, etc. So the agility, I think, is what is important in the process, in the go-to-market. And it's not a one-time activity, like I mentioned before. It will run through the entire continuum of our go-to-market exercise. But happy to have a longer discussion with you. Thanks.
Thank you, madam. I think one more question come on the similar line. I'll take two more questions before we close. I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, please. No, you take your time. Yeah, we are in
5 minutes extension with the permission of President. We'll exceed 5. Here's a question from Jayshankar, Chennai. It is believed that design thinking is the process in which critical thinking and creative thinking are vital tools. Is it true that all organizations, is it true for all organizations, or is it relevant only for manufacturing sector? There's always a belief that design thinking is applicable only to the manufacturing sector. So how do you make the people understand, is it applicable to every one of us, every organization, every type of businesses? Your view, please.
Yeah. Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
The short answer is yes. I think design thinking, like I started off saying, the common myth is that it is just for designers or people who are creating products or services. But design thinking could be used in anything at all. Even if you're planning your holiday, I think you can start with ensuring that you create that experience for yourself, by ensuring you go through the entire cycle. It can be applied to any life situations, and it can be applied to technology. It can be applied to businesses, the way we create our apps. So really, it's just a method of ensuring that we're getting a solution right, which is best fit for the user. So
I'd like to add one more example and practical implementation that we've tried to do of design thinking in schools. So we picked actually a group of children from municipal schools in Pune last year. And we said, come to this class with the problem that you find. And the problem that we wanted them to, the problem they came to the class with was, in our school, we get too much of homework. And we want to know how we can have fun when we go home and not having to do homework. And they applied design thinking principles to figure out how the teachers could be made productive, and within the class, how different children who are different levels of abilities. I mean, all of these came from children. They applied design thinking principles and came out with some really fantastic approach to how they could be solving the problem. Of course, later on, applying technology as well.
Thank you. Very true, madam. Because we are doing some work with the poor schools, aided schools, children of fruit vendors and cobblers. We're doing online aero modeling and design, and they're brilliant actually. They don't have bandwidth because they're borrowing the phone from the father for some time, getting it done. So what do? We got them a WhatsApp group, we connect with them, do the mentoring, go them. And I think we have to really make them feel that, yes, you are no less than any of the children studying the school. We are trying to do that. I think, Ravi, any final question from you before I take one last question from the social media? Over to you, Ravi.
No, I think it was, thank you very much. I think all the three of you it was like a masterclass listening to the digital journey. Very exciting. I think I don't have any question, but I was just listening to all of you and looking at what opportunities government has to really recraft their taxation model. One of the challenges we see today is the regulatory speed at which governments, I'm not picking only India, I mean, world over, we are seeing that, how to keep pace with the transformation digitally, businesses are evolving, and what more creativity governments can come with better tax process, because end of the day, we all need to also meet the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, right? And how can we use digital to make a big transformation? And that's something I was thinking about it. Maybe it's probably a thought process, Dr. Ganesh, for the next book, how can digital help SDG 2030,
We're already thinking about it, at least for SDG 1 and SDG 3. Yeah. We're trying to see how to make it happen.
And the other thing, the other thing is more around the digital literacy. I mean, if you go into the deepest part of China, an old lady who buys vegetables is able to use the phone and pay, and how do you actually make life easy for everybody in India? The bottom of the pyramid is something we need to really think about, because if you can actually bring the digital literacy and get the inclusiveness of that, then the agenda of transformation really is to the bottom.
No, Ravi, you're so right. And I'll just take a minute to share an anecdote with you. When Prime Minister Modi first launched this National Digital Literacy Mission 2014, and we were very excited in Pune, and we said we should not only urban, but rural, we should adopt that principle of one person in every family to be digitally literate. And I remember the Member of Parliament, Vandana Chavan, and we went to a little village called Sudumbre, which is about half an hour from Pune. And we said, okay, we'll set up a digital empowerment or a digital literacy center. And we did the analysis, 3,200 residents of the village and about 400 youth. And we said, okay, by the time we come back after 3 months, all the youth would be digitally literate because obviously youth are digital natives and etc. When we went back after 3 months, quite an interesting thing happened. So we talked to one youth who was on this hanging around on the street, and we asked him, have you been to the digital literacy center? He says, no. Then we asked another young person. He says, no. We said, what happened? He said, no, the whole digital literacy center has been taken over by the elder aunties of the village. So we actually went and talked to a 75-year-old woman and said, look, you are being, he said, why? She said, no, you know, my son keeps saying that, look, he's got a great match for his daughter and he has so much of acres of land. And she says, I go into the digital and I find what they call the 24, the Satbara extract, which really means what is the land ownership. And I can prove him wrong. Another woman who was probably in her mid-50s, we asked her, Tai, what do you do in digital? She said, look, my husband goes to the neighboring town and he comes back once in 3 months and saying, I have bought this, 600 rupee sari for you. She said, I quickly go to Flipkart and figure out the sari is available for 250 rupees. So we are creating now household problems. But you're absolutely right, Ravi. I mean, this is the power of digital. Okay, if we can make every person independently abled in terms of information power, imagine what can happen to the society. Completely agree with you, sir.
True. I know so many senior citizens who are doing fantastic work in digital. One last question for the evening, sir. Final question. That is, this is a question again has come from Pondicherry with Ram Kumari. What he wants to know is, how can leaders lead effectively in remote environments and how to manage the needs of a workforce that is increasingly diverse and shifting expectations around well-being, diversity, sustainability, and social impact? And how much the organization culture evolve to support these needs and stay cohesive? The digital transformations today they're able to work efficiently, but the connectivity is lost, that human touch is lost. How do you bridge the gap between the both?
So, Mr. Ramkumar, I will hand it over to the lady from Pondicherry, Uma. So, your answer.
So, Mr. Ramkumar, you have stated so many dimensions of leadership. It is going to be impossible for me to answer in this short span of time. But yes, I would tend to agree with you that despite everything digital, that human touch, having a cup of coffee and sitting across a table and being able to interact with the people, there can't be a better way of understanding or connecting with people and also being able to develop better insights. And there are today, thanks to digital, number of tools available which enable you to understand who are the employees, what are their thinking processes, and particularly through social media, we get to know them even better. So I think leaders in this kind of a digital age need to remain one step ahead of their own employees in terms of collecting their own intelligence about their employees' likes and dislikes and shaping their own messages, shaping their own approaches for how organizations should be run and communicate them regularly with their employees. So, Mr. Ramkumar, when I'm next in Pondicherry, maybe we can meet and we can discuss your ideas more in detail.
Yeah, a chapter in Pondicherry, madam. When you visit Pondicherry next time, we'll make you address the members of Pondicherry at hotel. No?
Okay.
It'll be a pleasure if you get time. Because when you get to offer MMA, straight away grab it, actually. We'll do that. Thank you so much, sir. It's a fascinating evening. There's so many questions that come from Facebook. It clearly shows that people are genuinely interested in this topic because this is the one which has to stay and you have to live smart, agile, and you have to do well. I think better be digital and learn, even though you may not implement it, but at least you know about it. It'll make you more confident to handle the situation, whatever comes in your way. Thanks so much, Mr. Ganesh Natarajan. I really appreciate your choosing MMA to do this launch and discuss. And it's always fascinating listening to you every time when you come and speak on it, be it China, be it digital. maybe I don't know what is going to be next subject. As President, it will be SDG 2030. Thank you, Uma Madam. Really, indeed, a pleasure. I think the clarity of thought which you explained in your presentation really made the evening very, very interesting, insightful. Dr. Lavanya, thanks so much again, and it's really a great insight. You are joining us and sharing your insight, especially in the field of digital thinking. And I think we should have one exclusive session with you later when it permits, and we should have a panel on design thinking. We do a lot of work with design thinking with Mr. Jain. I know Arun Jain is here. We did a lot of work along with him. Internet Design Arena is an organization in Chennai which we work closely together. Thanks so much to each one of you for sparing your valuable time and joining us this evening. And as a token of appreciation, we have been doing this for some time until the vaccination is over. We are going to continue to do that. We will present the mask on behalf of you, and also use sanitizers. We need to quickly our team go around and do this. And in addition to this, we also started a new initiative that getting the vaccination done at our place. We tied up with the Chennai Corporation doctors. They come and do the vaccination of all the people living in that area, so that they come. We give them incentives to people who come and vaccinated, and so they get something different. We give them a goodie or packet of provisions for their houses as incentive. Because I think everything works on incentive, be it digital or be it anything. I think vaccination requires incentive, which we are trying to do that, attract as many people as possible to do that. Thanks so much. Thank you, President, for joining us this evening. I know how busy you are. Thank you. And all ladies and gentlemen who have joined us in a huge number from different social media portals, keep watching. If you any of your friends missed this, not to worry, all these recordings are available on our YouTube, Facebook, our MMA website. You can watch them because very, very inspiring. I think some of you who have missed it, I think they should watch this program so that their digital transformation journey is not impacted. They will learn something which otherwise you won't get an opportunity to learn. Thanks so much. And every one of you, stay safe. Stay healthy. If you're not vaccinated, get it vaccinated yourself. If you've done the first jab, don't miss the second jab, because I've taken my second jab. I get a lot of keep getting SMSs in the digital transformation from the Covaxin side. You are not done your second vaccine jab. So it happens. Maybe this also we have to live with it. And but anyway, they keep reminding me that's a good one. And I know that some of the beautiful people. I also want to share with your members, with the present permission, the MMA Award for Managerial Excellence this year is going to be on how did we do COVID control 19? And we are going to recognize some outstanding people who are done in the field of digital, in the field of as a COVID warriors, doctors, bureaucrats. So if you have any name, and we'll be sending you the brochures soon, please send your name. I think they need to be recognized for doing some outstanding job, which really enabled to control the COVID-19. And I think they need to be recognized for doing some outstanding job, which really enabled to control the COVID-19 and also contributed significantly to the well-being of the citizen and reducing the pain which is being experienced at various levels. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, and see you. Bye-bye. Good night. Stay safe, stay healthy till we meet again. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed this.
Thank you, Doctor. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Good night.